Greetings and welcome to the Cancer Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Morton, and on this segment, we have a most unusual guest. He is Tom Aronson of Santa Monica, California. Tom has never been diagnosed with cancer, but make no mistake, he has been, is, and will be very much on a cancer journey. It began with his being a caregiver for his father, and from there, it went to a potentially very exciting medical discovery, and from there, it went to Tom being an advocate and a fundraiser. A lot to unpack here, so let's get to the unpacking. And Tom, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Well, thanks for having me, Bruce. Look forward to talking with you.
Well, what we like to do at first is just learn a little bit more about you, exclusive of cancer's involvement in your life. So if you would tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do for work, and although it sounds like you have a lot on your plate, when you do have leisure time, what you like to do for leisure activities, that sort of thing.
No, that sounds great. I'm coming to you live from Santa Monica. I've got two wonderful kids. I have a son in first grade and a daughter who just started preschool. And we're spending a lot of quality time together, given the pandemic. It is exciting that we're able now to do a little bit more. My son is about to return to school, so that is very exciting. But we like to spend a lot of time outside. Excited to be able to go back to some baseball games, maybe play some golf, but really just enjoy spending time with the family and hopefully traveling a little bit more. In my day job, I work in marketing for Disney theme parks, and so I'm also very excited to be able to go back to Disneyland here sometime soon.
Okay, so you mentioned baseball games. You sound like you live more in Dodger territory, but you work for Disney, which is an Angel territory. So are you a Dodger fan or an Angel fan?
Well, I am an Angel fan. Grew up an Angel fan, although living in Dodger country. My dad, who we'll definitely spend a lot more time talking about, had some really interesting connections. He worked in construction and became friendly with the Autreys, who owned the Angels. And so ever since a little boy, we grew up going to Angel games, and I'm raising my son an Angel fan, but there's plenty of love for the Dodgers too.
Now, your journey began with your being a caregiver for your dad pertaining to diabetes and not cancer. What all did that entail?
Yeah, my dad was very healthy. He was a giant figuratively and literally. He was 6'5". He wasn't overweight. He was in great shape. So it was really a surprise when at about 54, he was diagnosed with diabetes. He went into just a normal annual eye exam, and the doctor suspected and ultimately we found out he had diabetes. It was strange at the time because there's no family history of diabetes, nothing to expect that would be something that would pop up. And so that was really, we didn't know it at the time, but that was really the beginning of our journey with pancreatic cancer.
So how did you get, or how did your dad get from point A to point B, in which first he'd been diagnosed with diabetes, and then he found out that he was going to be diagnosed with cancer?
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't that long a time in between. It was about a year. About a year later, he, had a bunch of other symptoms, a lot of, pain in his abdomen and chest. And after a couple of visits to different doctors and specialists, it was diagnosed that he had pancreatic cancer. And I still remember that phone call. I was actually studying, getting my MBA at UCLA Anderson, and he called, and I went outside one of my classrooms and kind of stood out on one of the balconies, and he explained to me what was going on. So that was the first of many painful conversations that we had, and that was really the beginning of a lot of questions that we had around how did this happen? Were there things that we could have seen in the past? And is there anything that we could have done to help change the ultimate course? The ultimate outcome, which was he passed away 9 months after that diagnosis.
Okay, now diabetes and pancreatic cancer, quite obviously your dad had a lot on his plate. plate, but as a caregiver, you and maybe other family members wanted to help, but that's quite a bit. Did you have a plan?
Yeah, there's no plan. And he has so many people who loved him around him, family, his wonderful fiance, my brother and others. But when you get that kind of diagnosis, I'm coming to it. I'm his son, so it definitely impacts me greatly. But I don't even know. I can't even figure the way that it impacted him. But it's very scary. It's such a rare cancer, and there are no really great outcomes, especially when it's diagnosed so late. The majority of pancreatic cancer is diagnosed at stage 4. And what I would tell all of my friends and people who asked, there are only 4 stages, and so that's why it's so critical to try and figure out how we can find early detection signals. But yeah, it was we didn't know what to do, and you want to make sure that you have the best care possible. So you go to your personal networks. My dad was actually very close friends with someone pretty senior at Cedars-Sinai at the time, and he helped put together the care plan. We did a bunch of Googling. We learned about the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, PanCAN, very early on, who's just done amazing work, and we've become very close and huge supporters of theirs. And tried to do everything that we could, and ultimately it came to the point where we want to make him as comfortable as he can be, given it's such a terminal outcome.
Now, if you like what you hear on this segment, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast by checking the links below. Once there, you will see a bell icon. If you click on that, we will notify you when we post a new interview. Now, Tom, what is turning out to be a chain of events that could help many people in terms of their journey with pancreatic cancer began with a newsletter from the aforementioned Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. If you would explain that chain of events.
Yeah. So, when my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, we started asking the questions of, how is the diabetes related? Is it possible that the diabetes was actually a symptom of a pancreatic cancer tumor? And if that's the case, man, it would have been wonderful to know that and wonderful to be able to take some course of action. Pancreatic cancer, like I was saying, earlier, is such a deadly disease because it's not discovered until stage 4, and so the 5-year survival rate is less than 5%. But if there's a way that you can get to it early in an earlier stage, the 5-year survival rate is over 80%. So, there's huge hope for better outcomes if we can find better ways to find this cancer earlier on. And so I had suspected, our family and friends had suspected that there was that diagnosis of diabetes was a seminal moment, and if there was more we could have done at that point in time, then there could have been a better outcome. And again, like I said, we'd become involved with PanCAN, and so get their emails and mailers, and in maybe it was around 2013, got a newsletter from them that outlined the grants that they were funding, the scientific grants that they were funding that year, and one of them was specifically on this topic. So it was specifically about trying to determine if late onset diabetes is a symptom of pancreatic cancer. And I remember I called my brother up immediately, and I said, John, this is it. Like this is exactly what happened with Dad. And so I reached out to my friend Pam, who actually started PanCAN, and I said, Pam, I'd love to be able to donate to this. Can I donate money that will go directly to this grant? And Pam is just a wonderful, wonderful woman and a visionary in the space. And we had lunch, and she said, Tom, you can absolutely donate to it. But if you actually raise all the money, we can name this in honor of your dad. And, what an amazing honor. And, at the same time, we didn't have $200,000 laying around. But we decided to give it a shot, and we started a crowdfunding campaign. We reached out to our friends, our family, our employers had very wonderful matching programs, and we were able to raise the funds and name the grant after our dad. And so that body of work, it was led by Anirban Mitra, who's just an amazing human, and an amazing scientist and doctor and investigator, and he led that work. He's at MD Anderson, and now he is, he's leading so much specifically around the areas of early detection, and that ended up being kind of a seed that has grown into this just amazing initiative that PanCAN just announced, called the Early Detection Initiative, which is really about further testing for people who get diagnosed with diabetes later in life, who don't have any other big symptoms, and kind of surprised that they would have diabetes.
Now, Tom, I'm guessing that there are going to be some people who are listening or watching who are going to be intrigued by what you said. If they would like to take the ball and run with the quest for more information on this, what are your suggestions as to where they should go?
Yeah, the first place is check out the PanCAN website, and I think, Bruce, you said you'd include a link online as well, directly to the early initiative from PanCAN, the Early Detection Initiative, and there's a bunch of details about how it works and what we're hoping for there.
And where PanCAN is concerned, their web address is very easy to remember. It's very simply PanCAN.org, pancan.org, and that can be your starting point where you go from there. Now, Tom, one might want to know, again, there could be people that are intrigued about this, and if they get this information and they get it in a timely fashion, which, and that latter piece is obviously so important in this equation, how can one benefit if they get this information and they get it, quote unquote, in time?
Yeah, the way that I'm thinking about it is, it's becoming now common knowledge that there is a connection between diabetes and pancreatic cancer. And so when my dad was diagnosed, the eye doctor had no inclination that it could be anything else. And now I truly believe that in today, 2021, if my father was diagnosed with diabetes and, presented the same symptoms and was in the same health condition, then the doctors, whoever diagnosed him, would have said, you know what, I think we should dig deeper here, because so much work has happened in the 15 years that Dad was diagnosed, that people understand this connection, and even general practitioners understand this connection. So my hope is that it doesn't go undetected, and that combined with all the additional work that's happening in these trials that PanCAN is helping to lead, that there's more advancements and ultimately screenings that can help get us to earlier detection, so that it's not stage 4, and it's at a place where the tumor can more easily be treated and be removed, and outcomes for patients will be much more improved. And it's, ultimately, we want to get to a place where pancreatic cancer is not a terminal disease, but it's something that can be treated.
Now, Tom, let me ask you this, because you mentioned the S word, screening. And I can tell you from my still rather young experience with this website and interviewing people beset with different types of cancer, that the accessibility to screening depends on what kind of cancer you're talking about. Mm-hmm. With breast cancer, and to a slightly lesser extent, prostate cancer, of which I'm a survivor, getting a screening is relatively easy. At the other end of the spectrum, we've heard stories from our guests of those who have been begging for a lung cancer screening. They couldn't get one, and by the time they were diagnosed, they were stage 4. So knowing what you know at this stage, how would you, if you had to rate accessibility from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best possible outcome, how would you assess accessibility to lung cancer as we speak? Not lung cancer, but pancreatic cancer as we speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I couldn't give you a scientific answer to that, but I think the problem is that there really is no screening method right now. And so, I go every year, I get my annual physical. My doctor is well aware of my family history. My father passed away of pancreatic cancer. I ask the exact same question every year, which is, what can we do to screen for pancreatic cancer? And every single year, the answer is the same. And that is, unfortunately, there's nothing. And that's why it's, the work that PanCAN is doing in collaboration with a bunch of different institutions and across the world, really, and lead scientists is, hopefully going to get us to a much better place. And I will also say another plug for PanCAN. When I first got involved, once we got past just the terrible fate of what happened with our dad, and got to the place where I really wanted to learn more and see how I can help more. One of the biggest questions I had was around the notion of collaboration versus competition. So the little research that I would do, you'd see all of these different scientific institutions and different universities. We're all fighting kind of against each other to come up with that next innovation. And, you just know that that's not going to be the winning method. So how can an organization come along and actually bring people together and leverage all of the experts in a more collaborative way? And that's exactly what I learned that PanCAN is doing. So it's not about a particular institution or a particular researcher. It really is about plugging in all of those collective skills to this larger network so that they can get more data, they can get better results, and then ultimately the findings then can be distributed a lot quicker because everyone is really in it for the same reasons, not for trying to win the prize, if you will, for a particular institution. So that was something that made me also very optimistic about where we can go and what PanCAN is doing.
Our guest is Tom Aronson of Santa Monica, California, and on this segment, we're learning about the connection between diabetes and pancreatic cancer. Now, for healthcare professionals to act on this connection, Tom, that requires research, and research costs money. What are you doing to help in this area, and what can others do?
What I'm trying to do is, donate really as much as I can. I look at the different, the different organizations that are helping to advance science in pancreatic cancer. PanCAN is definitely one of them. MD Anderson is another one. Dr. Mitra, who I spoke about earlier, is actually leading the Pancreatic Cancer Moonshot program over there. And the work that they're doing, and the more that I've learned about MD Anderson over the years is really impressive. And there's a bunch of other organizations that are helping pancreatic cancer as well. So, just a little donation can go a long way. Now,
this may be redundant, these two things I'm about to mention. Perhaps there is some cross-pollination there, but we've established that you work as a fundraiser, but you also work as an advocate. What does that entail?
Actually, I think it's more rewarding to kind of share, anything that I may find out that interests me. That is one of the good things about social media. There's plenty of bad things about social media, but being able to amplify good stories and good outcomes is something that I've enjoyed. I think it actually started when we were crowdfunding for the research in our dad's name. And, that first time you go out on Facebook and you ask your friends and family for money, it's a very vulnerable moment. I think that it's probably one of the last things that anyone wants to do is actually ask people for money. But one of the things that came out of it that I was not expecting was actually hearing so many other friends and family and colleagues who had been affected and impacted, just like myself and my family, by pancreatic cancer as a result of losing loved ones. And so, it helps grow that community, which again, anyone faced with cancer, it's not a community that you chose to be a part of or that you would like to be a part of, but meeting other people who've been in that position, it definitely helps and brings strength. So that's been one of the positives.
Now, Tom, we have mentioned PanCAN's web address. Again, that's pancan.org. But are there any links that you would like to share that more closely, more directly tie with the work you are doing exclusive of PanCAN, if somebody wants to donate or help in any form or fashion?
Yeah, I don't have anything specifically that I'm donating, that I am raising funds for right now. I like to raise funds for PanCAN. Actually, every year in the fall, on the anniversary of the day that Dad passed away, November 28th, we do a Facebook fundraiser. And we've been doing this now for about 5 years, whenever the Facebook fundraiser tool began. And we raised, I think we raised over $5,000 this last year. So I would also encourage anyone to experiment with that tool. It really is a really great way to get the word out and to raise funds in a pretty quick and efficient manner.
All right, Tom, we're going to wrap things up now. And while we start our interviews all pretty much from the same place, we like to end from the same place. I have a feeling your answer to this question has already been covered in part, but I don't think there's any problem with being redundant in an area like this. But Tom, if you encountered somebody, friend, family, even a stranger, if you had a private audience with that person and you had a chance to share what you know, and that person had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, or they knew there was a possibility they might be diagnosed, or a loved one could be diagnosed, what would you share with them? What would be your message?
Yeah, I mean, there'd be two things. The first would be to call MD Anderson and try and figure out a care plan, and whether that is the first time you're meeting with someone or even just to get a second opinion. The more that I've learned about how they holistically treat and care for cancer patients, the more convinced I am that is a great first place to start. And with Dad, we didn't know what to do. And so at least now I feel more confident in what that first phone call would be. And that second phone call would be to PanCAN, and they have an amazing patient advocate group. And again, they're on the forefront of all the clinical trials. And so, I think it's very important that people get involved with those. And, we can all collectively do our part to try and, create better outcomes for, the next wave of individuals and our friends and families who unfortunately will get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Outstanding. Tom, thanks so much for sharing just a wealth of great information. And we both know how devastating pancreatic cancer can be. So I'm hoping that this can help a number of people so that if they are diagnosed, they're not diagnosed stage 4. Tom, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bruce.
And that's going to wrap up this segment of Cancer Interviews. We hope that what you heard can aid the cancer journey for yourself or for a loved one. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information, please visit us online at cancerinterviews.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you back here again next time on the Cancer Interviews podcast.